So my presentation has a very long title, Asia, America, Europe, Identifying Mobility Patterns and Developing Tailor-Made Solutions. It's a 15-minute presentation, so bear with me that this is a very broad subject. So what I wanted was to steer some conversation about how mobility decisions are made before even starting an implementation in a city around the world. So afterwards we'll have time, we can have a coffee and we can go into a little bit more conversation. But before we go into detail, let me explain to you what MOIA is. If you've seen that vehicle, some of you may have heard about us. We are still a pretty new company, 2 years old. We are 100% part of the Volkswagen Group. And our role is to implement urban mobility solutions very much focused on pooling, on autonomous, and on electric. So this is what everybody's trying to do. Well, we are doing it for the Volkswagen Group. So when I talk about mobility solutions, bear with me that I'm not thinking about how to bring a scooter into a city or how to bring any other type of a car-sharing solution. I'm very much focusing into autonomous, electric, and pool. Okay, those three things. So there are certain things on when you try to understand a market and how to move into a market that are very much influencing what business model you're in. Everybody is in mobility, yeah, but the scooter has absolutely nothing to do with that vehicle that we have outside. So that's a little bit the story. Well, that went forward, I guess. I pressed something. So this is where I want to steer a little bit of conversation. Where are we in the mobility world and think about pooling solutions? And if you look at the three main regions in the world, the United States, Europe, and China, and our point of view is that on pooling implementations, and I don't think there's a big surprise, the United States and China are way ahead of Europe. So if you look at the market, how many pooling solutions beyond public transportation there are out there, the United States and China are way ahead of Europe. Okay, we are a German company, I'm Spanish, but this is the way the market is. We cannot reinvent it. So that's the first message of how we see things. When we look at autonomous driving solutions that obviously we're working on and we will be deploying over the next years, again, I see a picture that the United States, there are many things going on. China, there's some things going on, and Europe is the third place from our point of view in this. And again, I only have 15 minutes, so, but this is the picture the way we see it, and I think it's mostly shared by most of the players that are in this environment of autonomous driving. But the question for me is not so much about who is first. The question is about what the game is about. Is being first a game changer? You hear I've been engaged for 20 years in the internet world. I was working for Car2Go for several years. One of the things, the first mover advantage, is it meaningful or not? So that's the first thing that we need to answer. And our view, and almost a personal view, is that yes, maybe Europe is moving slowly, but it is true that the potential of Europe is huge for many reasons. One of the reasons is, for instance, on pooling. Europeans and public transportation in Europe is very strong. So Europeans are very much used to pool already, and they don't see anything bad about it. Well, for instance, in the United States, the modal share of private cars is tremendously high compared with European countries. So when we think about where do we go, into what city we go, because of course this decision is not I go into the United States or I go into China, is exactly what city am I going to go? This is a little bit the order that we follow. This is, again, think about our business model. Maybe a scooter solution may not be exactly the same approach, but for us, the first thing we need to do is draw the value chain of that city. How do you bring the right vehicle at the right time for the right customer in the right place of the city? Understand what it is that I need to deliver that vehicle there. So the first thing I need to understand it, but not for Germany, for that city specifically we're in. So for instance, we're delivering those vehicles in Hamburg, and we needed to do this at the beginning. And once you deliver, you look at this value chain and you try to understand the value chain, you also need to understand that you're not going to be able to cover the whole value chain. It is a very expensive proposition, but also legislation is not going to allow you to cover some parts of that value chain for whatever the reason. Let it be drivers, let it be charging infrastructure, let it be whatever it is. So you need to understand that value chain before moving forward into a decision making, this is the right city for me to go. Then of course there's the business, where's the money? So you need to understand what is the logic that you're trying to bring into that city and how you're going to make money. This is the typical chart that any AED company, whether it's a startup or a large company, would bring into, well, the bringing autonomous is going to have the driver off, and the driver off is going to save money. There's some increase in operational whatever. You need to understand, if you choose a city, a specific that city, that value chain, what is your role in that value chain, and then also where you're going to make money out of that value chain. You don't want to be in a part of the value chain that has very small margins, okay? It may be very obvious this, but I've seen it so many times that it's not being done that I feel it's good to share. And then the last thing, actually, of the three main steps that you need to look at is actually understanding the mobility in the city. What are the mobility patterns? Where are people coming from and going to? What is the modal share? If I bring a new service, where am I going? Is people going to come from their private cars, from public transportation, from, this is a competitive market. Where are you going to, your customers are going to come? Are they going to take trips that they were not taking before, et cetera, et cetera? But that should be the last thing. It should not be the first thing. You need to understand the value chain first and where you're going to make money, and then you can go into the detail of data analytics. So very high level, and then again, 15-minute conversation. I just steer a little bit the idea of whether Europe, the US, China is more advanced or less advanced into the pooling idea or the autonomous idea. But the first questions that you need to ask, is it an open market or is it highly regulated? And within the value chain, where is it regulated? Does it stop me going into operations there because of that regulations? Changing laws is very long-term project, so you can engage with the city with a hope that the law is going to change, but you have to be patient into that, so you need to understand that. And then, again, on the value chain, where do I go, and who do I partner in those areas that I don't go? And it is very important because they are local champions. I think we all know regarding the local versus global view with ride-hailing companies, and I think we saw with ride-hailing companies that local champions are very important in order to have a ride mobility solution. And then message: be aware of the pilot concept. A pilot has to be very well aligned with the city. So you may decide, okay, I'm going to the value chain, this is what I'm going to do, whatever, I go to the city, this is the solution. And the city says, well, I like it, but let's do a pilot. I'm just like, oh, be careful. Because sometimes cities may see pilots as a way to solve a problem that they already had previously. They don't know how to fulfill a mobility need into their city. And they have a private company, whether a startup or a large company, and they say, oh, great, we can solve this problem that we had before. And they are trying to get conclusions out of a pilot for the whole market. So they may say, oh, let's do a pilot with very few vehicles in the corner of my city. And then if it works, I expand it. If it doesn't work, I kill it forever. That is very dangerous. So you need to align very much the interests of your own company and your own business model with the interests of the city. And that's it. So very quick. Again, open for questions and definitely open for a coffee afterwards for whoever wants to engage with me. Yep.
All right. Thanks a lot.